Okay, so the five number summary is just basically five different types of numbers. So the first one is what we call basically very easy. It's just the minimum value of a data set. We also have the maximum value, and then the three other ones are just a quartile. So if I ask for the five number summary, I'm just basically asking for those five different things. Now, why is this important? Well, once we find the five number summary, we can try to find a box plot and draw it. Okay, so make sure that you star this in your notes because a box plot will be on your exam. So a box plot is just a visual representation of all of the data points, including the points placed far left or far right in the data set. So this box plot actually contains all of the outliers. Okay, we don't know if these are outliers, but it does contain them. Okay, so for example, when we talk about the minimum and the maximum values, these can potentially be the outliers. Okay. So if I had a couple set of numbers, this will be the minimum value, this will be the maximum value. Now my quartiles, the first one that you draw is the median. The median is just going to be the literally where the middle value is at. Then my first quartile is going to be right next to it, and then my third quartile is afterwards. Now the quartiles contain the majority of my data. Okay, so that's where the box comes from. So this is where most data points are at, most data. Okay. Now, on the further part is the rest of the data, okay? Um, and yeah, that's basically all it is. Okay, so what can I talk about this? Not much about this. Something else that I can say is that there's basically 50% of it is right here, the other 50% is outside, and that makes sense, I guess, because the quartile here is 75%. Quartile here is 25%. If I subtract that, I will get 50%. Okay, now we are not going to do a box plot. We are going to do a modified box plot. Okay, and what a modified box plot does is that it does not include the outliers because here in the maximum value, this could have been an outlier. But however, in a modified box plot, we actually try to identify the outliers. And the way that I try to identify the outliers is by using some sort of rule of thumb. We just take Q1, the first quartile, subtract it by 1.5 times the IQR. And then you also take the third quartile and add it to 1.5 times the IQR. Okay, now IQR in this case is what we call my interquartile range. It's a measure of variation. It's just the difference between Q3 and Q1. So how far is the third quartile from the first quartile? Okay, and that distance, if we say if that distance is a little bit more than 1.5 from the third quartile or from the first quartile, then we will call that an outlier. So it'll make sense right now when we do an example, but for right now, copy these formulas down. My lower fence and my upper fence. So make sure that you copy these ones down. It'll make sense when we do an example. Right now it looks a little bit like, wait, what the heck is going on? But with the example, it'll hopefully make a little bit more sense. So basically we are still drawing my Q1. So here's going to be Q1, here's Q2, and here's Q3. Okay. Now these fences, this is what we call my lower fence. This is going to be my upper fence. Okay. And then if a data point lies outside of these fences, we will call those outliers. Okay. And then that will just be it. Okay. Now this data point is not my maximum value because my maximum value was the one over here. This data point is the next good value, the one that's just made the cut. Here, same thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and do an example, and hopefully this will make a little more sense. Okay, so first, given the following data, find the five number summary. Okay, so I think what would be really good is to try to put this in order. Okay, so if you want, I'll give you a little bit of time to try to figure this out. Okay, so what I got was, let me see. So the first one is a 22. Then we have a 25, okay, then a 34, a 35, a 41, a 41, a 46, a 46, a 47, a 49, a 54, a 54, a 59, and an 87. Okay, I hope I got all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, so I think I got all of them. Okay, now what we want to do, we want to go ahead and find the 5-number summary. So my minimum value is very easy. That's just 22. So min is just equal to 22. Okay, my maximum value is also easy because I now know that this is going to be 87. Okay, now all we need to figure out is my quartiles, Q1, Q2, and Q3. So let's try to figure that one out. So let's figure out what my second quartile is. So I'm going to find the median of this. So I'm continuously doing all of this. And I think I got somewhere in between 46 and 46, which should just be 46. So my Q2 should be 46. Okay, I hope I did this right, because it would be a shame if I did this wrong. Okay, so this is 46. Okay, now my Q1 is going to be my lower half, and my lower half is all of this. Okay, so all of this will be my lower half. So I'm going to have 22, 25, 34, 35, 41, 41, and 46. Okay, so what is this going to give me? So this is going to give me what? This will give me a 35. Okay, so my Q1 is going to be 35. And my lower half, which is all of this part, not my lower half, my upper half, it's going to be 46, 47, 49, 54, 54, 59, and 87. Okay, so what would this give me? This will give me a 54. Okay, so I got my Q3 to be 54. Okay, all right, so now I got my 5-number summary. Now what you can also do, you can always just put this in your calculator, and I would advise you to do that, because as you can tell, it can be really tedious. Okay, now that we have our 5-number summary, the next step is to find my lower and upper fences. So if we go back up, here are the formulas for the lower and upper fence. So my lower fence is going to be Q1. Okay, so this is going to be Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. And then my upper fence is going to be Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. Okay, that's what both of these are going to be. Okay, so the first step is that I need to figure out what the IQR is. So my IQR is just the difference between my Q3 and my Q1. Okay, oops. So Q3 in this case is going to be 54. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and subtract that from 35. And what I'm going to get is going to be 19. So that's what my IQR is. Okay, so for my lower fence, Q1, which that was 35, I'm going to subtract 1.5, and I'm going to multiply this by the IQR, which is 19. Okay, so I messed this up. This should be 19. Okay, and then with the Q3, I'm going to do the same thing. This is going to be 54. Then for this one, I'm going to add 1.5. I'm going to multiply this by 19. Okay, so I'm going to put this into my calculator. So 35 minus 1.5 times 19. This is going to give me 6.5. Okay, and then 54 plus 1.5 times 19. That's going to give me 82.5. Okay, so these are going to be my values, my lower fence and my upper fence. Okay, now my question here is for part C, are there any outliers? Okay, so my lower and upper fences that's where these two things come into play. So what my lower and upper fences tell me, this lower fence and this upper fence tells me that if there's anything on the outside of these two numbers, that's bad, that's an outlier. Okay, so in this case, this is going to be, my lower fence was a 6.5, my upper fence was a 82.5. Is there any numbers that are outside of this range? And in fact, there is. This 87. This 87 doesn't follow the majority of the pattern, so we would say that 87 is probably going to be an outlier. Okay, so how am I going to construct this box plot? So it's not that bad. The first thing that you want to do is plot your quartiles. So my quartiles, my middle one was a 46. 46 is around here. Okay, so here was my middle one. Here was Q2. This was 46. My next one, okay, where's Q1? Q1 is 35. Okay, so here's 35. Q1 is going to be equal to 35. Okay, then Q3. Q3 was equal to 54. Okay, so 54 is going to be somewhere around here. Okay, so Q3 was equal to 54. So here is my box. Okay, so my box. Okay, so now the next thing that I want to do, I want to go ahead and draw my hinges. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and draw my upper and lower fence. Now, this is usually not drawn, but it will be helpful when you're trying to do this, the drawing. Okay, so I scrolled all the way up. So this is going to be, my lower fence is going to be about 6.5. So 6.5 is around here. So here's where my lower fence is at. My upper fence is going to be 82.5. 82.5 is somewhere around here. Okay, let's say that's 82.5. Here's 82.5. Okay, and here is going to be 6.5. Okay. All right, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw my outlier. So my outlier in this case is going to be that 87. So the 87 is going to go somewhere here. So here's where 87 is. So this is an outlier. Okay, now what goes here? Where's my hinges? Well, that one's going to be the next good value. Okay, my next good value was the value that was right before 87, which was in this case 59. So 59 is going to be my next good value, which is around here. This is where my hinge starts. That's my upper hinge. This is going to be my 59. Okay, now what about my lowest value? My lowest value is going to be this 22. Okay, so that 22 is going to be my lowest value. Okay, so 22 is going to be around here. Okay, and that's going to be my lowest value. And this is now going to be my box plot. Now you can go ahead and get rid of these green marks because we don't need them, but because my box plot is just going to be all of this, and it's going to be also including this 87. Okay, and that's how you basically make a box plot. Okay, so go ahead and go over this again if you really need a little bit more help, and then I'll talk about z-scores in the next video.